Be good. If you've ever said, why won't he just step up? Or I'm sick of making all these decisions, this episode's for you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. A man cannot lead a dance if you're already dragging him across the floor. You want him to take the reins, to make the plans, to lead with confidence, to initiate affection, to be decisive again. But every time he tries, you hesitate, you correct, you override, you adjust the plan because it wasn't quite right. So eventually he stops trying and you end up in this weird loop. You resent him for not leading, but you also don't trust him to lead. That's the death of polarity. Not because he's weak, but because you're running a one-woman show and there's no room left for masculine energy to breathe. So let's flip the question. It's not, why won't he lead? It's, have I left any space for him to lead into? Because masculine leadership isn't wrestled into position. It rises in response to feminine trust. And yes, I know that's a loaded word, especially if he's dropped the ball before. But if you want the dance back, you've got to stop driving the music. All right, I got a bit poetic there. Let me say it another way. You want him to lead again, but deep down, you don't trust that he will. Not because you're a control freak, but because you've had too many moments where he said, oh, I handle it, and then he didn't. So you stepped up again, and now you're the leader, the planner, the emotional engine, the decision maker, and the spark is gone. Not because you're not attracted to him anymore, but because there's no space for him in your system anymore. You're doing everything. You're carrying everyone. And you don't realize that the very thing you crave, a man who takes charge, is being suffocated by your own well-trained self-reliance. Let's break it down with 3 practical real-world examples. Reality check number 1. You can't say be a man, then cut his balls off when he tries. Does any of this sound familiar? Don't be offended, I'm not your husband. I have no vested interest in the outcome. I'm just a voice in the darkness. Okay, he finally plans a trip you've been hinting at, and when you find out where it is, you roll your eyes because he didn't book the right hotel, or he tries to handle dinner and you point out everything he forgot. Then, later, you tell your friends, I just wish he'd step up more. But the truth is, you trained him out of leadership, not on purpose, but consistently. So here's what you do. Next time he plans something, even if it's half-baked, let it stand. Don't edit it mid-execution. Like we said before, let his mistakes be his mistakes. In fact, if he's done nothing for a long time, you have to expect he's going to mess it all up the first time he tries, and he's going to be looking at you for that disappointment he's so used to seeing. You can laugh and show him you're not going to condemn him, but you can laugh with him about his mistakes and then let him fix them. You're still holding standards, but you're not holding the reins. Okay. Reality check number 2. You want initiative, but you're the one setting all the rules. You're always choosing the vibe. You decide when affection happens. You decide when the conversation begins or ends. And it's subtle, but he feels it. You're not with him, you're running him. So here's what you do instead. Stop filling every space with your direction. Let there be silence. Let there be awkwardness. That discomfort, that's where masculine presence has a chance to emerge. He won't step up if every gap is already covered by you. Here's a simple example. You're heading out for the day and he says, should we take snacks for the kids? Instead of answering immediately, pause. Let him think it through. Let him decide, even if it's obvious to you. You're not being passive. You're getting out of the way so he can build his own muscle. Here's something you've probably noticed but can't name. Masculine energy doesn't argue for power. It either steps up or steps back. And if you've been the boss for too long, he's already stepped way back. You don't need to give up leadership, but you need to stop leading everything. If he's making decisions you could have done better, so what? You're not hiring an assistant, you're rebuilding polarity. So here's something to try. Choose one area this week to hand off intentionally, not as a test, not to watch him fail, but to retrain your relationship to carry weight on both sides. Give him full authority over one domain. Make it clear that you're stepping back, not as a power move, but as an invitation. And if it doesn't go how you'd do it, Talk about it as equals, not as a supervisor correcting an intern. That's how men grow. Not through micromanagement, through meaningful ownership. I'll give you a real world example. Say this, but you got to do it in your own words. I'm so tired at night putting the kids to bed, and honestly, I think it's affecting our sex life. I don't feel like a woman. I feel like the house slave. I need help, not just because I can't do it, but because I shouldn't have to do it all. Can you take full ownership of bedtime this week? Start to finish your way? I'll back off completely. Now he knows. This isn't a trap. This is you handing over trust and also revealing the consequence. It's not about toothbrushes. It's about tension, and he'll feel that. If he drops something, don't fix it, but don't punish it either. He's not dumb, so he'll figure it out. But if you really have to scratch that itch, say something like this. You want to talk about what worked and what didn't? I want this to be sustainable. That's team energy, that's not top-down pressure. Here's another example. Weekend planning. Instead of saying, you never plan anything, you say, I'd love it if this weekend could be on you. Whatever you think we'd enjoy as a family, I'm not going to jump in. I want to enjoy what you create. It's important here that you say, I want to enjoy what you create, not I want to see what you create, because I want to see is a trap. Okay, let it be simple. Let it be him. If it's not perfect, who cares? It's a movement. That's what matters. And if something genuinely doesn't work, debrief him with respect. That's how real men learn, through engagement, not ego shaming. Let's be real though, all right? The first time you hand it over, he might do nothing. Or worse, he might throw a dad's in charge day with junk food, no naps, no structure, not because he's malicious, but because he's trying to prove it's more fun when he's in charge. That's a common response when men feel like they've been sidelined for too long. They don't lead, they perform. In my program, Passion Without Poison, I talk to men directly about this. It's super important. I teach them, don't take over just to prove you're better. Take over because it makes your wife breathe easier. That's leadership, not rebellion. But if he hasn't done the program, here's what you can say the next time, because you do want this to work out long term, so you have to let him do it again, all right? You say, I'd love for you to take the reins one weekend soon, not to impress anyone, not to compete, just to lead the family in your way. I'll step back and whatever happens, happens. Then you mean it. If he does nothing, you don't mope. You don't say, told you so. You say, that felt like you weren't holding anything. I don't need perfection, but I do need presence. That's not parenting, that's partnership with standards. And if he throws a junk food, chaos-filled, fun dad day, you name it, after the fact. I want to feel taken care of, not left to clean up a mess. I'm not looking for a party planner. I'm looking for a man who makes life feel lighter. That's how you coach leadership, without shrinking yourself or parenting him. Let's round this out with another example. This one will cover that frustrating middle ground, the place where you finally step back and he doesn't step up. I'll help you get to this with strength, not sarcasm. You know what I'm talking about, right? You finally back off, you stop managing, you give him space to lead. What does he do? Absolutely nothing. He scrolls, he waits, he acts like the responsibility never existed. Now you're fuming. You're thinking, this is why I do everything myself. That moment is crucial, because this is where most women either jump back in and rescue, or explode with built-up resentment, or double down with silent punishment instead. Hold the line. Speak like a leader, but make it very, very clear what this means for the relationship. You say, look, I stepped back so you could take some of this, not to punish you, but because I'm done doing everything. If you don't want to lead, fine, but don't act surprised when I start treating this relationship like I'm alone in it. And later on, when you're sulking because you sidled up to me hoping I'd ride you or suck you, you'll know why I sighed and went to sleep. And if you really want to draw a line in the sand that any man will understand, you can go for the balls and say something like this. Now, warning, this is not safe for little ears and it's probably a bit too far, but I also know that some of you have been pushed too far and need an equalizer, so here it is. Say something like this. Obviously, you want to say this in your own way, But if Shani said something like this to me, I would jump to attention that very instant. I love the taste of your dick. Man dick, not boy dick. I want to be fucked by a man. I don't want to be pity fucking a little boy. I married a man, not a child that wants to constantly crawl back into his mother's womb. No yelling, no sarcasm, just clarity. You're not making demands. You're setting terms. And if he doesn't rise, well, then you're finally seeing the truth you've been covering for. And that truth is what gives you your power back. Because when you finally see that he actually does what he actually does without your constant buffering, rescuing, managing, you stop lying to yourself. You either see a man stepping up or a man who's been leaning on your effort for years. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That clarity is where your real power lives. Not control, not perfection, clarity. Because now you know exactly what you're working with. And you can stop living in hope and start making decisions from truth. Let me say that clearer. You've been carrying the relationship on your back. You've been compensating, filling in, making excuses because deep down you hoped he would get it together. But you've also been avoiding the truth, that he's not rising because he doesn't have to, because you keep stepping in because you're scared of what it would mean if you stopped. When you finally stop covering, you stop giving him a place to hide, and you finally see what he actually does, not what you're doing on his behalf. When you stop managing, mothering, or filling that every gap, you stop confusing control with strength. And the moment you see clearly whether he can meet you or not, you stop living in a fantasy and start living from reality. That clarity, that's your power, because now every decision you make is based on what is, not what you were hoping for. You either rebuild something real or stop wasting your life waiting for something that was never going to change. Let's summarize. You want a man who leads, but leadership doesn't grow in captivity. It needs space. If you've been steering the ship for too long, not because you wanted to, but because you had to, I get it. But now it's time to loosen your grip. If you want him to rise, you have to step back just far enough for him to feel the gap and decide to step forward, not as a favor, not because you begged, but because your energy called it forward. Reclaiming the dance means letting go of the choreography. It means letting him stumble while he finds his rhythm. It means holding your ground, not your partner. Because if you want to feel that tension again, that pull, that spark, that desire, you got to stop dragging and start inviting. That's how you stop managing your marriage and start living, moving, and breathing in it again.